Shalom, Hotep, Assalamu alaikum. Revolutionary greetings of all flavor and varieties. This is Christopher Sargon with an investigative report on the surveillance state. Yes, Chicago and many other municipalities have moved into this high-tech information age and become very surveillance and high-tech savvy. No longer do they need to post up with binoculars or archaic types of surveillance equipment. Now, these cities, with funding from the federal government, along with funds that they draw from their own coffers, have moved into a high-tech era of surveillance. And in 2017, the Chicago Police Department put into action its Crime Prevention and Information Center. So the department's Crime Prevention and Information Center is one of over 75 fusion centers in the United States. And these started sprouting up after the signing of the Patriot Act, with the measures that were prescribed in the Patriot Act for Homeland Security. So a fusion center is a collaborative effort of two or more agencies that provide resources, expertise, and information to the center with the goal of maximizing their ability to detect, prevent, investigate, and respond to criminal and terrorist activities. Intelligent processes through which information is collected, integrated, evaluated, analyzed, and disseminated are a primary focus. Data fusion involves the exchange of information from different sources, including law enforcement, public safety, and the private sector. And relevant and actionable intelligence results from analysis and data fusion. The fusion process helps agencies be proactive and protect communities. So this has been going on since 2017. They have, and when I say they, I mean the police agencies, Chicago Police, Illinois State Police, the FBI, Homeland Security, have all been monitoring using high-tech surveillance equipment the neighborhoods of Chicago with its very astronomical amount of shootings per day, per week, per month, per year. And all of this under very intense scrutiny from all types of police agencies that are sworn in their duty to protect the communities. So what protections do we have? Who polices the police? So basically, what is supposed to be our protection comes in the form of a document called the United States Constitution. Anyone who has done even a small amount of reading and or research in and around the struggle for equality, for liberation, for civil and human rights of the descendants of the African slave trade will soon discover that constitutional protections have not and still do not always apply to us. There were instances in the far past, Dred Scott, for instance, where the court concluded that a, a black man, in other words, the descendant of the African slave trade, has no rights that a white European American has to honor. Let me elaborate upon that. The people who are the descendants of the people who were kidnapped, brutalized, abused, mentally, physically, and sexually. Their descendants who toiled, were tortured, maimed, and murdered in the United Snakes of America do not have any rights, human rights, civil rights, a right to life, a right to property, a right to prosperity. We don't have any rights that the white European or their descendants don't have any rights that they are bound to honor. This was the Dred Scott case. The 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 conclusion of the Dred Scott case. And so the Fourth Amendment, which in its eloquent speech, eloquent transcription of these words, states that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. So the right to be secure within your person, your house, your papers and effects against an unreasonable search shall not be violated. So when the city of Chicago puts cameras outside of your door, cameras on telephone poles with unbeknownst amount of magnification or different imaging properties such as infrared or ultraviolet or ultrasonic, whatever the case may be, to peer into your home from outside, which we don't know if they have the capability to do that or not. That's still in question. But these types of things should not be happening. They should not violate our security, our right to have a secure environment in our persons, our houses, our papers, and effects, unless there is a thing called probable cause. Now, probable cause opens the door for police to become invasive, to investigate, and to search and seize a person, his property, his effects, papers, what have you, under the auspices that there is direct and reliable probable cause in the form of an oath, an affirmation, and it particularly describes a place, a person, or a thing to be searched and or seized. This is no longer the case. We have electronic surveillance, electronic searches, electronic peering into people's lives and effects without probable cause. Only probable cause is that you're definitely, not probably, a person defined as black by the social standards of the American middle class, defining a person as black when they are the descendants of a cruel and lucrative dynamic of free labor that enriched entire generations of people and put another class of people for generations as second class or third class citizens in this country we call the United States of America. So at present, Chicago employs approximately 30,000 closed circuit cameras. Now that is the number of cameras that are belong to the city of Chicago. That's not including private sector cameras that they can access with their software capabilities of their fusion centers, that its primary purpose is to collect vast amounts of information. That's 30,000 taxpayer paid for cameras operated by the city of Chicago. These cameras are on telephone poles, mostly. Other types of utility poles in and around the city. They are constantly watching. They have entire sections of police officers that their primary duty and responsibility is to monitor these cameras in their fusion centers. And then they use this information to compile, report, and predict where crime is going to take place. Well, then why, pray tell, are there so many shootings in Chicago? When we have devices known as the Stingray, it has aborted what is known as a IMSI catcher and is sold commercially under names like Stingray. And these devices mimic cell phone tower, and they connect to mobile devices without the user's knowledge, which in many states is an illegal act. It's illegal to monitor, to tap, eavesdrop someone's phone conversation without at least one party being aware that there is a eavesdropper on the line, or that there is a third party accessing the information that is being exchanged during a telephone conversation. But it also can intercept emails, text messages, and other forms of social media messaging, your Facebook Messenger or Instagram DM. So the FBI has mandated that state and local police keep quiet about the capabilities of surveillance gear. And this was according to a document released under the Freedom of Information Act, that they don't want the general public to know how invasive devices like the Stingray are. And These devices are carried aboard numerous vehicles. One pictured here, and you can see that it has a lot of apparati on the top of it, and it has superior surveillance capabilities. It has been reported that infrared imaging is available to the officers that utilize the equipment, where they can peer into someone's home using heat signatures, and they can basically look through walls into private residences to spy on the individuals that are inside of a private residence without warrant, without probable cause, um, in a truly illegal fashion. That they do all of this very secretively. There's been times where I myself have went to protest movements, and they would be these surveillance vehicles in the area, and when you got close to the protest and the vehicles, your or my phone would go berserk. It would just basically become inoperable because, along with the ability to intercept your communications, it can also jam communications. So the Chicago Police Department would purposefully jam cell phone communications to try to interrupt the coordination of protesters who were legally and peacefully protesting in the city of Chicago. So we have a high-tech police department aimed at the descendants of African captives brought here to do work, who toiled days and months and years of their lives to build the infrastructure, to build an economy, to build physical structures such as Washington, D.C.'s elaborate federal building campus, all done on the back of slave labor, all done basically with free labor. And no benefit has been derived from the efforts of the people who did the work or their offspring. So we are moving to ShotSpotter. Now we have another type of surveillance technology which employs the physical technology of the sensors that detect gunfire, the devices used to graphically display the outcome or the data that is compiled and analyzed and then put into the form of a graphical user interface, where the end user or the policeman has at his disposal a map with pinpointed areas of where gunfire occurred. It even um, will have images if cameras were in the vicinity, and it will have audio of the shots themselves, and it will direct the police officers responding to an area where the technology triangulated or it used um, input from devices in several locations to pinpoint where the shots came from. So, not too long ago, a couple of policemen were killed by a train answering calls of shot fire. And the suspect, Edward Brown, said he found a pistol in an alley and wanted to see if it worked. And he fired several shots in an alleyway or up on some railroad tracks. And this is what touched off an alert from the shot spotter sensors. And two officers, Eduardo Marmuela and Conrad Gary, they were sent to an area near 103rd and Dauphine to investigate. And the officers saw Edward Brown and got out the car and scrambled up the tracks. Somehow, during their search, during their investigation, they were struck and killed by a commuter train. And so this leads us to the brutalization of our communities by these officers responding to uh, calls of shots fired. And we move along into the realm of social media spies. They also employ uh, social media to spy upon the residents of Chicago. And from 2014 to 2018, city invoices show that the Chicago Police Department spent nearly $1.5 million on surveillance software called Dunami, which has been used by the FBI to mine social media to determine networks of associations, centers of influence, and potential signs of radicalization. Dunami has also been used by Chicago public schools to analyze students' online conversations as part of a $2.2 million federal grant aimed at preventing violence and identifying gang affiliations. So, Chicago, in conjunction with the federal government, has been compiling information from social media accounts. They have been, for the last few years, making arrests based on information and imagery um, posted to social media accounts. And apparently, the Chicago Public Schools have been collecting information on students, which leads them to profile students as gang members and having gang affiliations according to what they post on their social media accounts. And so the police have these vast um, staging areas, these fusion center rooms with all kind of monitors giving them information from all around the internet. Um, they have officers that are dedicated to surveilling social media accounts to make up fake Facebook, Instagram, Twitter accounts to befriend and monitor different individuals all around the internet. So you have to be careful who's on your friends list, who you contact, what you say, and how you say it anytime you're operating um, or anytime that you are communicating with others on social media. You really have to be savvy and you really have to be cautious of what you say and how you say it because you don't know who it is you are talking to on the other end. Even if you think it's somebody you don't know if that is actually that person at that time communicating with you. So this has all been some information that I hope people can use to make better decisions moving forward, to make informed decisions when you are moving around the city of Chicago and its neighborhoods. Know that the Chicago Police Department, in its effort to place tighter constraints upon the residents of the South and West Sides, are now employing high-tech measures to keep everyone in line, to keep you under their thumb, and to watch what it is you say, do, and think on social media and even in your private lives if you have drawn the attention somehow of the police agencies. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Be safe, be cautious, and be aware. Because to be aware is to be alive. Love and peace. This is Christopher Sargon signing off.